a few years ago before her book was published, and the book is called The Sum of Us. We're going to be reading, or I'm going to be reading her part of her introduction. I'm fundamentally a hopeful person because I know that decisions made the world as it is, and that better decisions can change it. Nothing about our situation is inevitable or immutable, but you can't solve a problem with the consciousness that created it. The antiquated belief that some groups of people are better than others distorts our politics, drains our economy, and erodes everything Americans have in common, from our schools to our air to our infrastructure. And everything we believe comes from a story we've been told. I set out this journey to piece together a new story of who we could be to one another and to glimpse the new America we must create for the sum of us.
Well, today I'm going to talk about white racism. And usually racism, you think about black people and poor effects. But actually, we as white people are the ones that perpetrate racism by the actions we take and the benefits we receive. We have blood on our hands, to use a metaphor. The actions we take bounce back to us in one way or another. The message is based on a book. Thank you, Francisco. By Heather McGhee, called The Sum of Us. We live in one of the wealthiest countries in the world. Racism is a toxin affecting our national fabric and the spiritual and moral tone of our society. Lack of equity has ugly effects. People's lives are changed by poverty, lack of health, and poor education. One theme of the book is that racism limits public benefits to everyone. Government assistance is for regular people, for help with health care, retirement, child care, and college for your kids. And all of these are issues that we struggle with. Studies have shown that people with high levels of racial resentment oppose government spending. Lower government spending hurts everyone, white people and people of color alike. So what she does in the book is go through different areas and illustrate these themes. So the first one I wanted to talk about was government spending. The U.S. has a low commitment to public goods. This affects everyone, especially black people. Historic shortfalls have ghosts that affect our current reality. Public goods that blacks historically lacked access to were the Homestead Act, which gave free land to farmers to facilitate Western expansion. FHA loans, which were loaned to developers, but they had clauses prohibiting the developers from selling the houses to black people. And later, the FHA redlined certain neighborhoods. The GI Bill, counselors slated black people to technical colleges instead of regular colleges. Minimum wage laws, which excluded agricultural and domestic workers. So a lot of these post-war benefits that help people ascend to the middle class were not available to black people. What happened when civil rights laws came around and said that we have to share these benefits? The public benefits sometimes became corrupted or were less important. One example that was particularly striking was public pools. In the 50s, there was a spate of building public pools. They were a source of luxury for everyday people. Then the civil rights laws came along. In Montgomery, Alabama, this resulted in local governments draining their pool, filling it with dirt, and paving it over. Then they closed the park and sold off all the zoo animals. Now we have a slide of a public pool in St. Louis. You can see it. It had one of the best public pools in the Midwest with a capacity of 10,000 swimmers. So it kind of looks like a lake. And this was in the book, but I thought this is too weird, so I looked it up, and it's true. The Parks Department The pool was built in the 20s, and you can see people swimming. And the Parks Department integrated the pool in 1949. Someone said, well, can black people come in the pool? And the guy thought, well, they're people, they can come in the pool. So the first integrated swim with 30 black kids ended in bloodshed. 200 white people with bats, clubs, bricks, and knives ambushed the black swimmers. Later, a white mob of 5,000 attacked every black person in the area of the swimming pool. So the city returned to having a segregated school, using public safety as an excuse. Then the courts forced the city to integrate the pool. In the first integrated summer, there were 10,000 swims versus 315,000 previously. So the pool, no one wanted to go to the pool after that, and so St. Louis drained the pool and shut it down. So it's kind of amazing when you think about it. These actions taken in the early 1950s carry through to the current day. And this story was repeated in different towns all around the country. I just picked this because it was a good story. Current studies, now you think, well, swimming pools, that's not such a big deal. But current studies indicate that up to 64% of black children and 30% of black adults have low or no swimming skills. Black children aged 10 to 14 are 7.6 times more likely to drown in swimming pools, more likely to drown than white children. And these disparities are due to lack of access to pools and socioeconomic barriers rather than lack of physical ability. So that's one issue that's pretty clear. I'm going to just walk through a couple issues. Home mortgage lending is another area that she talks about. And I was talking to this banker once, and he said the financial crisis of 2008 was caused by the government urging lenders to make loans to unqualified black people who then couldn't make the loan payments. This caused the financial collapse in 2008. And what really happened is a different story. One reason for the financial collapse was subprime loans. Subprime loans are loans with higher interest rates and higher fees. These loans were justified as helping people with poor credit have access to home ownership. However, banks made more money on these, but that was supposedly compensated for the high risk. Banks used these loans for black borrowers that could have qualified for better loans. So even if you had good credit, they would give people subprime loans. And then these loans were targeted to existing homeowners because they had more equity in their homes. Between 2004 and 2008, blacks with good credit scores were 3 times as likely as whites with similar credit scores to have higher interest loans. And then these loans resulted in foreclosure. And what happened is the banks packaged all the loans up and sold them on the stock market, this package of loans. But then it didn't work. So the result of this is that the wealth of the median African-American family shrunk by more than half between 2005 and 2009. Median Latino family wealth shrunk by 2/3. The last issue I'm going to talk about is integrated neighborhoods and schools. Schools are funded by local and state taxes. The wealth of a community determines the funding levels of schools. Nationwide, overwhelmingly white schools average $2,226 more funding per student than overwhelming people of color districts. So this influences where people live because all of us want our children to go to good schools. But this perpetuates inequality. We are taught that we want to live in neighborhoods with good schools so our children will have a promising future. Homes in zip codes with at least one school with higher than average test scores were 77% more expensive than homes in areas with schools with average test scores. So it costs more to live in PHM, for example, because they have good high test scores. Someone with average wages cannot afford to live nationally in 60% of the neighborhoods with highly rated schools. Homeowners in areas with good schools had $51,000 more in value increase between buying their home and selling it. And this is all caused by people wanting to help their children. So this is kind of a myth, though. However, studies have shown that students at predominantly white schools who attend, and children who attend diverse schools achieve better learning outcomes and even higher test scores. So if you go to a diverse school, you do better. White students at racially diverse schools develop more cultural competency, which is defined as their abilities to collaborate and feel at ease with people from different racial backgrounds. So they have more cultural competency than people who attend segregated schools. Improved critical thinking and flexible and creative thinking and the ability to solve problems. So, and black students who attended integrated schools also have the same result. So that is sort of an illustration of how public benefits affect all of us, especially white people. Now, Charlotte's going to talk for a while, then I'm going to come back and talk about what we can do as people. And so give Charlotte a nice hand. She's a good speaker.
Well, oops. I don't know if can you hear me? Okay. So, good morning.
Good morning.
I want to start out by commending you for having this conversation because we need many, many, many more of them. I also want to say up front that I can look in the audience and I know a lot of you, and also I can tell that a lot of you are my age, which is a very good age, by the way. So anyone who's, I'll just say 60 and over. I'll just go with that. I could say 70, but I'll say 60 to be more inclusive, especially because today my daughter became 60. So I just want to talk to you about, I love this book, and I want to talk to you and encourage you to continue to do research and read and educate yourselves, because racism and white people and oppression and all these kinds of things, this is lifelong learning. And we're just talking a couple of minutes to you about it. So I'm going to probably insult some of you, because you know how I'm 70, I'll be 79, by the way, so I'm part of this. I'm 79, I've got a master's degree, I've been around. What can you tell me about anything? I know everything. So, and we're really bad about that. So I'm going to give you a little bit of history just for those of us who may not know or may have forgotten. And there are some people, again, as Ann was talking, the gasping that I heard in the audience lets me know how shocked people are about these kinds of ordeals that happened in St. Louis. They happened all the time, and they're still happening. And it doesn't shock black people. So I'm always amazed at people being shocked. People are shocked because you have been protected, and you've been lied to, and you have been given a different scenario. And so, what are you telling me? I don't. Oh, okay. I didn't know. Am I running out of time? So you've been given a different scenario, and that's what segregation does. When you are born into, live in segregated communities, worship in, by the way, my church looks just like yours, only the opposite, okay? The most segregated hour in the United States is always Sunday morning. But segregation does really damage to us. But I want to talk to you about, so again, if I insult you, that's okay. I really don't care if I do. That's what I'm here for. Okay. So I want to talk to you, I want to break my talk into three categories. Slavery. And you say, oh God, slavery. There she goes, talking about slavery again. Why are those Jews always talking about the Holocaust? Why can't you get past it? Well, I will when you do, okay? So I'm going to talk about slavery, Jim Crow, and also crime and punishment. Those are the three periods in our country, and the laws attached to those periods, which is why we're still dealing with this today. We are a country of laws, and laws enforce everything we do, whether we know it or not. So first of all, slavery, of course, is as old as time. By the way, let me back up. As Ann said, diversity work is something I've done all my life. Diversity, properly defined, includes everybody. I'm here today to talk about racism in regards to black people and how white people benefit and are harmed from that racism. That's what I'm here to do today. Slavery is as old as time, but in this country, the slave ceased to be a human. And my belief is that that's what we're really struggling with. Black people have not yet reached full humanness. I don't believe that if you regarded black people as human, that all the things that continue to happen would happen. You wouldn't do those kinds of things to a human being. If you thought a black people were a human being and we're driving down the street, you wouldn't pull us over because we're driving down the street. Yet any black man you talk to today, especially black men, will tell you driving while black is an unwritten law. You might get pulled over. You might get pulled over because you're speeding. You might get pulled over because you're not going fast enough. You might get pulled over because your tail light's out. You might get pulled over because you made a left turn. You might be pulled over because you are just driving. Would you do that to someone that you regarded as a full human being? Because the truth is that other people don't have to deal with that. That's the facts, okay? So let me just kind of go on. That lack of humanness has been used to justify oppression, and oppression was made into law. So I used to teach this stuff all the time, and you know how we like to have definitions. I want you to, and again, don't write things down. If you want something that I said, I'm glad to give it to Ann or Barbara. But think about oppression as the one-way, systematic mistreatment of one group by the other, with that mistreatment reinforced and supported by the society at large. So oppression is one way. It's not they did it too. And it's systematic. That means all of our systems support this mistreatment. And it is reinforced and supported by the society at large. Laws and norms support oppression. Now, hold on to your seats. White people are not superior. White people are not superior. However, you have every reason to believe you are. It's not your fault if you feel superior, because everywhere you look, everything you touch, and the laws say, not only are you superior, but people like me are inferior. It's in the air we breathe. You don't even have to think about it. In fact, that's part of the problem. The situation is set up that a white person, even in 2026, really can live a purely white life. You can live in a white neighborhood. You can worship in a white church. You can go to a white school. You can work in a white setting. Actually, still in many places in this country, it is so white. My husband is from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Now, that's funny to me, because 30 years ago when I met him, I guess it's been 34, I can't remember anymore. But we were in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, maybe 25 years ago, and they were interviewing him, the newspaper, and it was in the wintertime. Now, if you want winter, I always got winter, the kind of winter I used to have in Michigan. So it was a beautiful winter day. The sun was out, and I just stood outside waiting for him. And I was standing there and enjoying looking around and feeling good. I was like 40 then, everything was tight and I looked good, I looked good and I felt good. And after about 20 minutes, I was like, what is, I got uncomfortable. What was it? I couldn't figure it out. Cars were going by, the snow was beautiful, the sun was shining. I realized that I had been standing in downtown Cedar Rapids for 20 minutes and I didn't see one black person walk by or drive by. And that stunned me. Again, because I grew up in Niles, Michigan. I'm from Ohio, but I grew up in Niles, Michigan, in South Bend, and I'm a West Sider. So I just lived such an integrated life. It shocked me not to see one black person. And that's when I looked up, less than 1% of the population in Iowa is black. Now, I don't know what it is nowadays. I don't think it's that much better. So that just, it stunned me. So that just tells you about white spaces. But no, white people are not superior. But I'll have to tell you, and again, I want you to, when we come back and say, what can you do about it? I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I think would benefit you. Okay, let me move on. So slavery, slavery, and it was the laws, and then it was outlawed. But then, of course, we had Jim Crow. And Jim Crow basically it went back to slavery, only farms, and it made it look like it wasn't slavery. Look it up. But then I want to tell you about crime and punishment. So in other words, every time black people in this country made some advances, there's always been retribution. There's always been white people who get scared and make some laws, even if it's violent, to bring us back. So look at crime and punishment statistics. Black people and white people, and again, don't look at one period of time. I'm talking about the whole thing. Black people and white people basically commit crime about the same. What's different is the punishment. When a black person commits a crime, the punishment is severe. And so if you look at how, there was a study done, I think, on Sweden, Norway, and the United States, on how the imprisonment rate went up. And the crime was the same, but the difference in the United States is the imprisonment population went way up. And those in prison are black, brown, and poor white. Black, brown, and poor white. And so again, the crime is the same. It's the punishment that makes the difference. So I'm going to sit down because it's 10:25, but we want to go back and forth. But those are the things that I want you to know. My opinion, and I've had many conversations with my friends, Barb and Ann and other people. I really think, why 2026 are we still dealing with these issues of racism is because of the lack of humanity, and that it's installed and reinforced by our laws. And so that's one of the things that we have to come to terms with, that when blacks ceased to be a human, as we were slaves, because of economic benefits and also justification, how can you justify enslaving a people? Well, you're actually kind of doing them a favor because they're not fully human. At least you give them food, clothing, and shelter and kind of take care of them. Now, you might think that's stupid, but I'm telling you, that was the mentality. And that's what the laws enforce. And I think a lot of those laws are still with us. Ann's going to come up and talk, and then I'll kind of come back, and thank you very much so far.
Well, I can't talk like Charlotte. Of course, she has great political intelligence. Well, that's what we decided yesterday. Of course, we all want equality. We want to stop racism. Are we powerless to do anything about it? I don't think so. Everyone can do something, even if it's small. Things you could do are spend money in a black business, find a black contractor, buy a home in a mixed neighborhood. That's a big one. You might lose some money, though. Volunteer in an agency that benefits people of color. Attend a black church occasionally. That would give you a whole new way to get to know people. You could go to St. Augustine's, which is a mixed church, or go to Mount Carmel, which is Charlotte's church, and we know people there. Develop personal relationships with black people. And it's not the easiest thing to do. You've got to find a way to kind of think about who you are and how you could do this. These are all platitudes. You've probably heard them before. So I thought I would think of some white people I know that are inspiring examples. There are giants among us. One person is Jessica Kitchens. She does the backroom work for the Martin Luther King breakfast, which is 1,000 people. And the breakfast is organized by Gladys. But if you know Gladys, she deals with the big picture stuff and brings other people in to do the dirty work. So Jessica does that. And now Gladys is 80 years old. And Jessica has volunteered and done all the backup work for this huge event. She takes all the reservations, she decides who sits where, she makes arrangements, she coordinates the schedule. It's a massive job. She's done this for free for 10 years. It's a thankless job. You don't get a lot of PR for it, but I think it's a very important event. And if you haven't gone to it, you should go sometime. It's breakfast, so you can go before work. The second person is an anonymous white banker and investment firm owner. This man has owned a bank, and now he invests in banks. His liberal son told him he should do something he has charitable activities. So direct his charitable activities toward people of color. So he contacted a former employee who directed him to Mount Carmel. He joined the board of this nonprofit that Charlotte and I work with. He assists us with financial decision making. He says positive things in board meetings. He is extremely smooth. And he has raised funds. So he sends letters to his friends, and they give us large amounts of money. I mean, like $200,000-300,000 a year. And I've never seen anyone do fundraising at this scale just from their friends. But that's how the upper level works. Then he read this book by David Brooks about building a house in a mixed neighborhood and inviting a mix of people over for dinner once a month. So now he has people come out to his house, close to Niles, very nice house. But he's building a house, and he's bought land and working on this house, and then he's going to have these dinners and invite like decision makers and people from the neighborhood. So he attends Mount Carmel Church. He has befriended his fellow board members. They go out to dinner together, and the pastor of the church. The third person that I think is inspiring I ran across recently is Tom Grip at the Notre Dame Credit Union. He makes loans to Latinx people with a tax identification number. They can't get loans because don't have the right idea, but he does it. He opens up lending to those that couldn't borrow funds at the same rate as everybody else. And he pays minimum wages of $15 an hour to all his employees. And he went in the newspaper and urged the other banks to do the same, but they declined to do it. He expands the bank's participation in community programs. And someone told me the bank wasn't doing well, but they're doing much better under his reign. So he's to me, an inspiring person. And I think people take who they are and go with it. And I wanted to explain a little bit of my history. I grew up in Texas, a very white, community, very middle class. And I worked in mixed agencies, but I was kind of young and didn't really catch anything. And then I came to South Bend and worked in minority neighborhoods at South Bend Heritage. We bought a house on West Washington Street, which troubled my husband, and made friends with people in the neighborhood. And South Bend Heritage had coalitions of black people and white people which was very politically powerful. And I got a lot of insights into the politics of the city. And when you work with people, you can just talk about issues of race. And sometimes people would call me out like, this is racist, but I never felt like they hated me, you know? And I had good examples of people who did work they believed in and did actions to support the community. And we worked pretty hard together to get projects built that agency had never done before. And when I started, we were doing this big project, supposedly, but it seemed like a fantasy because we had never done anything that big. So I went around and asked people in the agency if they thought we could do it. I was new. And everybody's like, oh, I don't know, maybe we'll do it, maybe we won't. But one of the black employees was the only person that thought we could. And she said, we will do this if we have to build it brick by brick. And I thought, okay, she's got it, you know. That made me believe it. And then we had sort of a difficult boss. And I was talking to her about it. She said, I have no time to bother with the likes of him, you know. It's like, I've got work to do. I'm ignoring him. Which I thought was very inspiring. I made friends with Charlotte. We probably walked in the morning for about 10 years. And I got her views on a lot of things. And one of the women I talked to, just a couple stories, she had a son who was very smart. This was a long time ago, and they called him in and said, we can get you a full scholarship to Purdue. But he said, I'm sorry, I can't go to college. I have to help my mother raise her children. So he didn't go to Purdue and stayed in town. And he became one of the top people in the South Bend Water Works. Another co-worker, she would organize anti-drug rallies, and her son came, and then the police figured this is a good opportunity and came and arrested him for child support. And she had a daughter that went to Harvard, so I watched her with that. And then people helped me. My daughter had a friend who couldn't make it through college because he went, but he didn't have any money. So they went to talk to Gladys, and she handed him a $5,000 check from her breakfast money. She had a scholarship fund. And my son didn't like school, and he would do different things in the community. So he hung out with Charlotte's husband and went on the radio. And I had people I knew around the community to keep an eye on him. I had little spies. He would go to, hang out with high school students and things like that. So once he called Charlotte and told her he wanted to get into juvie so he could write a newspaper story. So we had a good laugh about that. And the Mount Carmel people treat me well. So I feel like I learned something about racism from being around people. So in my work, I've helped, the housing stuff I do has very few black developers. So I'm probably the person who's worked with the most black developers, which aren't very many, but at least I think I have better consciousness. And I think Chuck Leone is also one of the people in the community that people feel like they can go to on both sides of the race line. So I think personal association has helped me to understand in a way I wouldn't if I just read books. So that's my story. And you can listen to Charlotte now.
So when should I stop talking?
Oh,
Soon?
about
Soon?
5 to 7 minutes.
Okay.
I'm good for that
Okay,
long.
that's fine. I want to say something that you've never heard before. White people are not superior. White people are not superior. Your white skin is an advantage. You're born with an advantage. I'm talking about this country. Your white skin is an advantage. It really is. That's your advantage. But who you are, you're not superior. However, the laws and the norms that we live in, you have every right to feel superior. Because everything you see, everywhere you go, every story that's written tells you you're superior. And it also tells you that I'm inferior. You really cannot forget that. The other day I was watching television, and I watch NPR and C-SPAN and all these things all the time. And someone was talking about someone that helped them. And in 1972 or 3, I can't remember anymore. So I didn't go to college until I was 27 years old. And I took a class at IUSB, and there was a history professor there named Dr. Glenn Chestnut. Dr. Glenn Chestnut was a white male and a Baptist minister from Georgia, and he taught ancient history. I loved history. I'm a history major. So in Dr. Chestnut's class, there was a section on Greek history, and he wrote me a little note afterwards. I got a B in the class, by the way, and I graduated from high school, and I didn't go to college for 10 years. So that B was fantastic to me. But Dr. Chestnut wrote me a little note and said, "You did really well in the section on Greek history, and I want you to know that I teach an advanced course on Greek history. Would you like to take it?" Now, this was my first class. He was giving me permission to take an advanced Greek history class. I still have that sticky note. And so I took it, and I got an A. And then Dr. Glenn Chestnut just mentored me and was always there for me all through my life. Gave me the advantage, gave me that I could do it, noticed me, he saw me. About 10 years later, after I was doing quite well professionally, I opened and ran community-based corrections here in town, but I was burnt out, and it was time for me to move on. So I had started doing some diversity workshops with 2 friends of mine, 2 white men. And we were doing these free workshops around town. Some of you may have been there, I don't know. And I did one at IUSB, a free workshop, and Dr. Les Lehman, some of you may know him, was getting ready to open an Office of Campus Diversity, and Carter Wolf, you may know him, turned to Les Lehman and said, "Les, here's your director right here." Make a long story short, Dr. Les Lehman hired me to lead the Office of Campus Diversity at IUSB. Les Lehman is about a 6'2" white man from Tennessee. So I was thinking to myself, how is it that a black female Baptist Northern kid, the 2 people that gave me the most advances in my career were 2 white male Southern men? Go figure. Well, again, that is what integration does for you. I was in that class. Dr. Chestnut, I don't even know his background in terms of racial background, but Dr. Chestnut saw a person there who had intelligence and gave me the opportunity to further that intelligence. Les Lehman, I'm sure, could have hired 20 people to run that program, but he saw something in me, and he hired me. So that just goes to show you, people who look nothing like you, sound nothing like you, and neither one, well, at least Dr. Chestnut was Baptist, but Les isn't. But I just want you to know, this is why integration makes the difference. So maybe I contradicted, I don't even know, I've never asked them, I may have contradicted everything they ever heard or were taught about black women because I was there and they had opportunity to interact with me. They took that leap and gave me the opportunity. And so I'm very practical. My husband says to me, "You're so damn practical." He does not mean that as a compliment. I know that. But I'm practical. I don't think you have to leave your segregated neighborhood. I don't even think you need to leave your segregated church. But you do, I encourage you to have the courage and the commitment to go out and read books, movies, go to plays, educate yourself. Black people are not your Encyclopedia, please, information. You educate yourself. I'm going to just say it. Stop asking me stupid questions. If someone asks me another stupid question, yes, I wash my hair. Yes, I get suntanned. Whatever else stupid, I've been asked so many stupid questions I couldn't tell you. By very intelligent people, too. Shocking. But every time that happens, that person is ignorant of knowledge. And they really don't know. And so most of the time I answer them because they need this information. And hopefully they don't ask someone else that stupid question. But that just shows me that here in today's world, that someone would think I don't wash my hair. Now, if you thought I was don't human beings wash their hair? So every time I keep getting reinforced, they don't think I'm a human being. You don't think I tan? Anyway, my point is, those are things that you can do yourself. And I encourage you, you don't have to do some big thing. You can do little things. Educate yourself. Don't be ignorant. Don't be satisfied and make those little things. The whole concept of snowflake, does anyone not know what that is? Say so if you don't. So that snowflake is a white person who can't take anything harsh. Like I may have offended several of you this morning. You know I don't care. Okay? I mean, because I got invited here. I didn't force myself here. If I did insult you, if I offended you, you ought to go home and take a look at that. Why did what I say offend you? Really? Why did what I say offend you? And I hope you'll do some research. So my three-prong recovery. A, you really have to take a look at who you are. Who are you? Look at your life. Where do you live? Who do you associate with? What do you know? And then someone that you trust, by the way, not a family member, someone that you trust, say, this is how I see myself. How do you see me? You have to give people permission to tell you the truth. And then the winning of allies. Go out and meet someone different than you and have respectful conversations with them. And ask permission. Can I ask you some questions, and then you can ask me some questions? Allies is what we need. It is true what Heather McGee said, if you care about our country, our community, our world, then we have to come together. The truth is, even though you're white and you may think you're superior, you cannot save this planet by yourself. We need each other. So I'm okay with hold your nose and go do it. And what you'll find is then you'll start feeling comfortable. No one attacked you, no one broke into your, whatever goes on in people's homes. You'll start feeling comfortable and you'll be empowered and you'll learn things and you'll feel good about yourself and you'll feel good about the people around you. But I really think that this kind of work is scary. It's scary. You have a right to be scared. I'll tell you, when I'm in an all-white neighborhood, I'm scared. And I would be a fool if I wasn't. I would be a fool, and I'm too old to be foolish. Okay? You should be afraid. Don't go by yourself. Go with other people and learn. Last thing I want to say, I had the honor and privilege with Barbara Williams, and because of Barbara Williams, again, I went to Africa. How many years ago was that? I don't know. 10 years ago, something like that. And it was the first time that I was home. And it was an incredible experience. And everywhere I went, people would call me Mama, which is a term of endearment. And they'd call me Rasta because of my hair. We were going down a market, and people would yell out at me and greet me. And I'm telling you, I just can't tell you how good it was to be home where I started. So I'm Baptist, I get to end 3 times. Home is, who are you? Who raised you? What did you hear when you were a little kid growing up? What kinds of things did you hear? How did that form you? How does that impact how you're living today? You really have to ask those kinds of questions. What do you think of people different than you? And then your intelligence, not your heart, your intelligence needs to tell you that you're not superior. But why do you feel superior? And do some work. I'm telling you, the only way we're going to survive is with each other. And that might be with some people that you don't like and make you feel uncomfortable. And that includes me, by the way. I'm always working on it. There are people, I have to tell you, well, let me stop. I'll talk forever. I will say this one thing. The one group of people that I've never interacted much with are Asian people. I grew up in Niles, Michigan. I just have never interacted with Asian people. So that's the work that I want to do. So we all have work to do. I thank you so much for having me this morning. I respect you tremendously. And of course, we talk all the time. I respect you so much for having this title. Give Anne a hand, because she's courageous as all get out.
We have a meeting coming, so we're going to have our closing song, and then we'll 2 verses. Offertory. Yes, we are having the offertory, and if you would like to give electronically, there will be a QR code on the screen. So please give generously. We have to keep the church together. Go ahead. Yeah.